So this would be video 2.4 on the Blender 2.80 course, and this one has to deal with the N and T tool shelves. When you press the T key, you'll see that here on your left hand side you can see a menu or a tool shelf appear, and if you press the N key, the same will happen here on the right hand side. Both of these depend on whatever you have selected and what it is that you're doing with what you have selected. So explaining them in detail will take some time, but let's see how it goes. This cube here, which I have now selected, is now in object mode, and the T tool shelf looks like this. And the first button here is the select box, and I can have different types of selection tools in here. For example, I can make it a select box like so, or I can make it a select circle, which looks like this, and would select anything that I have inside that circle. Or I can make it look like a lasso, which enables me to do a freeform selection. Of course, I don't have anything that I could select with this, so maybe this would work better if I go into edit mode. So that's just the way of selecting stuff. The next one is the 3D cursor, and this is most important because with this you can place the 3D cursor wherever you want in space. And since the 3D cursor is used for snapping operations, it's very good to know where to find it. The third button here means that with this one, when you have selected something, you can move it along the axis. I strongly recommend that whenever possible, try to move your stuff along the axis and not like freely, like so, because after that you don't know where the object actually is in space. So I'll cancel out of that. The next one is rotation, and the last one is scale. The one in here in this group of transformations, move, rotate, scale, and transform, enables you to do all of these at one time. But I have to say that this is one of the most confusing views in Blender, so I never use that. It doesn't make any any sense to me. So besides, I always try to use the hotkeys, which are G for transformation, or G for move, R for rotate, and S for scale. It's so much easier to work with those. This one is annotations, and quite frankly, I've never used annotations because with it you can draw into this scene here, and it becomes a doodle in 3D space. I really don't know why it is there, but maybe it's for highlighting some stuff. I don't know, but I've never used it. And the last one here in the object mode menu is measure. Now, measure is nice because you can just click in here and drag like so, and then you can grab that end and snap to a corner, for example. And this way you can see that if you have a cube that is 2 by 2 by 2, the diagonal length of this line here is 2.8 meters, which is actually the square root of 2, as you would understand from your geometry lessons. Or I can grab this end here and press Ctrl to snap to the other vertex, and now I have the diagonal diameter of this cube, and the length of that is 3.46 meters. So the measurement tool is actually quite nice when you start doing stuff and you have to have precise measurements. You can just make a measurement like so, and then just drag and use the cursor to snap to the corners of whatever you're doing. Okay, so this was object mode. The modes are, by the way, they're up here, and you can select these modes. But you will find that you will mostly be using edit mode and object mode. Edit mode for doing vertex and edge and face level stuff. Yeah, so the modes are here, and object mode is moving the entire stuff, the entire mesh, and edit mode is for moving whatever it is that you have selected, like an edge, like so. That's the difference between the modes. Now that we are in edit mode, you will see that the top is the same, but here we have extra tools that we didn't have when we were in the other mode. So if I select the face, and then I click on this one, which is extrude region, I get this plus sign here. So I can create another face if I click on the plus and I drag it like so. This is actually sometimes quite useful because you can select anything and add parts to it by merely extruding. The other tool that you have in here is extrude along normals, which is the same thing, but it always extrudes along the normal of the face. The third one is extrude individual, which would work actually better if I added another type of object. Let me put in an icosphere, and then I go into edit mode with that, and I select a couple of these faces here. If I now say extrude region, my extrusion looks like that. But if I say extrude along normals, my faces look like that. So it gets bigger as it comes out from the object. And if I say extrude individual, I will have individual faces extruded along the normals. This is looks pretty impressive, but I've rarely used that one. And the last one was extrude to cursor, which enables me to extrude towards the cursor. I've never used that either. Cancel out of this and go back to my box and into edit mode with that. Now this one, inset faces, means that when you have this one selected and you click in here, you can inset a face, and then you can extrude from that. This is a very nice tool actually. So to do it again, just select a face, click on the inset faces, and push inwards. So that's for that. Then we have bevel, and bevel is good for doing edges. So I'll just select a few edges here. Then I will click on bevel and push down like so. Now up here you can see segments. So this will define how many segments you want to have in your push. Now I have 7 segments, so it's a much nicer rounded looking thing. Now you can also do this more easily by selecting those and pressing Ctrl B, dragging down, and then using the scroll button on your mouse to edit the number of segments you want to have. I don't know why my screencast keys stopped working, but they just did. Okay, the next one is loop cut, and this is one of your very key tools, I have to say, because your many times you have a cube. Let me just delete this quickly and add another cube. Shift A and cube. And loop tooling is very nice for doing extra vertices into your meshes. So you go into edit mode, and then you go into loop cut, and then you can place your cursor or place the cursor somewhere on your mesh, And if you now click on the left mouse button, you will get one extra loop cut or loop ring right there. And then when you click outside of the object, it will stop doing that. You can have two of them if you click and then you re-click. You can have as many as you need to have, and you will keep getting them until you come out of the tool. But there's also a nicer way of doing this than using the button there, and it's by using Control R and the scroll wheel of the mouse to tell you how many loops you want to have. So there's 1, 2, 3, and when you now click on the left mouse once, it will place the loop rings, but they remain in transformation mode or grab or move mode. So you can still move your mouse until you are in the right place. And if you now right click, they will stay in place, but if you left click, they will go back to where they were and be placed on your object. So to do it again on the other side, Control R and scroll up once, click once, so that I can place them where I want them. And I'll just select them in the middle with the right mouse. And now you can still scale them, by the way. If you now say scale Z, you can scale them like so. And right clicking out of it and left click will confirm. Or you can scale on the Y axis. Or you can scale on the X axis. So you can see that scaling on the Z axis, scale and Z, will separate them further or bring them closer together. It all depends on what you want to do. This one here is a knife tool. A knife is nice for getting vertices into your mesh. Let's say that I wanted to have this one cut into with a small square right here. I will just go in here, click on the knife, and pull across the edges that I want to have, and then right click to left click to pull them out, and then enter to confirm them. I'll put the next one there, like so, and like so. And now that I have the vertices there, I can then go into the top view, select the vertices 1 and 2, and scale across the y-axis, x-axis for 0, and this will make them perpendicular to the grid. So select the vertices, scale on the x-axis and 0, and this will give you a nice little box, or a nice little square there, which you can then select like so, and use the extrude region tool to extrude. The polybuild tool is something I really don't use because I don't do retopology, and I don't build meshes on top of other meshes, which is basically what this is for. So I'll skip that. Spin will extrude selected vertices in a circle around the cursor. For this, you would need to be in let's say, like in this view, and place the cursor there with this tool. And now with this selected, go to my side view, place the cursor, go here, and now select this one. And with this tool now, I could basically spin this object around this way or around this way. I'll just cancel that. So that's for spin, but I have to say I haven't used spin that much. It's one of the tools that are there, but not an everyday tool. Smooth then is much more interesting, because smoothing means that when you have selected the entire or the area that you want to smooth, you can just click here and say push it in and it will become rounder. Just sometimes useful. Rip is, edge slide is for selecting an edge ring or edge loop by pressing the Alt key and then moving in. And then using the edge slide, you can move the edge, move the vertices along the edge that they are residing. Sometimes useful. Shrink and fatten will do exactly what it says on the box. Shrink or fatten. Shear will let you move your object, like twist the part of the object that you have selected. That's most likely how you should say that. And then if you have two, let's say you have two edge rings selected, and you click on Rip region, it will make a copy of what you have and then move them out of your mesh. Let's try to select this part here on the top actually. And now click on Rip and pull out, which it won't do. Actually, my Blender has failed me a couple of times already here during this recording, so I will just leave it as it is. But ripping merely means taking stuff out, and you can do the same thing by pressing the P key and saying separate by selection, after which you have a copy of the thing you had selected there. So. But these are rarely used. As for the other one, I'll just kill this and add another one, another cube like so. The other tool shelf that I was talking about was the N tool shelf, and it looks like this. And the parts that you have in here also change quite heavily depending on what you have in your scene. So, for example, if you have a cube and you have an edge selected, you can go down here to your overlays, select edge length, and you will now see how long the edge is. It's 2 meters at the moment. So if you scale that down, you can see all the edges that are affected by this move. Or you can pick edge angle, which means that this angle here is 95 degrees. And if you rotate that, you can see that all the angles move. Or you can have a face area. When you click on a face, you will see the face area of that face, rarely used. And you have all kinds of other tools that you may or may not find useful. Sometimes you may not want to see your 3D cursor. You can turn it off. You can turn annotations off in here as well. And the next thing you have in here is X-ray, toggle X-ray, which allows you to see through your object, like so. And then you have your viewport shading for wireframe. This is almost the same as the X-ray. Then you have solid. Then you have material preview. If you had a material for this object, let's say, let's quickly make it a red object. Make it a red, like so. You can see it like here, but when you go to solid, it doesn't have the color. And the last one is rendered, and this one means that when you have EV turned on, you can see the effect of the light on your object. If you grab the light and move it around, you can see how it affects the shading. But if you are in solid mode, it doesn't show you anything. I'll mention it here that if you go and you select cycles as your render engine and then turn on this, you will see that your work will be slowed down by Blender trying to render everything at all times using cycles, which is way slower than Eevee. So just keep it on Eevee when you're working with your scene, and only go to cycles when you're rendering. These, on the other hand, will give you information about the object, its location, its rotation and scale. The tools reflect whatever you have in here, whatever you have selected. The view lets you lock the camera to view. This is actually important because when you go to your camera view by hitting the number pad 0, you don't see anything at the moment because your object is not in the camera view. But when you have that thing selected, you will be able to move your object as it is seen in the camera. Otherwise, your scene will move like this. So when you lock camera to view and you go to the camera mode, then you can see what's going to happen when you do rendering, for example. Also, your 3D cursor is here. Clipping means whether you can see the object or not. The distance from the camera, that's what it means. And here in your create menu, you can just basically create new objects if you want to, but I rarely use that either. And these buttons here will let you toggle the camera view, and this is for moving the view. And this is for orthographic and panoramic view or user perspective view. And this is for zooming in and out of the view. This is for seeing from the top, from the right, and from the left, and from the bottom. So you can quickly select your view and see how your scene is aligned by looking at those buttons here. So this would be a 22-minute introduction into the two different toolbars that we use in Blender.